That is good. So I don't think we can mess it up this time. Or I can't.
Maybe I should record to be safe. Can I do that? No. So I'm just on my phone, I think.
That's okay.
Yeah, it doesn't
I
matter.
feel pretty confident this time. Pretty confident. So I got the audio track and then my screen is for sure recording. So I think we're good. Volume's turned up. I tested everything. So we're golden. Now I'm like, it has to be as good as last time where I'm like natural. Obviously, it'll be a little different. I watched your new
It'll be
Patreon.
better.
It'll
Yeah.
be better. Yeah. So I watched your new Patreon and what was the title of that? Something about the Commonwealth and dead corpse, beating
So
a
yeah,
dead
why does
horse.
Australia keep tying itself to the corpse of the British Empire? Which
Yeah.
is something I say a lot to people. Yeah, it's a good question because we are. I don't know. I imagine Canada's a bit different, but Australia is still obsessed with the British Empire. Like, yeah,
Well,
we're
we are
still.
still tied. I guess I should do
I
our
think
intro. I guess I should do our intro. And then we'll get into.
oh
Let's
yeah,
start there
let's
so it's
start
like a
that.
jumping off point, if that works. Do you think? Okay. Okay. Girls, we'll just keep talking. I was like, okay. We'll do our intro. Three, two, one. Um, all right, everyone, welcome. I have Max here. He has come back on the show because our last recording didn't quite work. So he's agreed to join us today, which is awesome. I think we're both really passionate about the decolonization, anti-capitalist sort of conversation. So we'd like to get you guys a good informational, entertaining, and fun episode. So yeah, just I guess I'll just introduce you. It's Max from Triploi Podcast. He is doing a lot of history stuff for us. Updates regularly. He's got a Patreon. He's on TikTok. He's on Instagram. So all of his content's free. So I'd encourage you guys to follow along with that. And yeah, I guess we'll just get started with your latest little episode. You can tell me. You can tell me the title.
Yes, so first of all, thanks for having me on, Megan. It's always good to be here. So the title was off the top of my head as well now, but it's basically why is Australia still tied to the corpse of the British Empire, which is a bit tongue in cheek, but it's true. Like Australia is culturally obsessed with Britain still to this day, despite the fact it's on the other side of the world. The empire is long dead. It was dead before I was born, but we still feel this weird connection to it. And it's something that I always like to pick apart in both colonial culture, society, and of course, geopolitics, which is what that one was about. And the fact that China is like Australia's biggest trading partner by far as well. Like it's not even close. Like the combined exports we have to Britain and America don't even come close to what we have with just China alone. So why are we so antagonistic towards China? And that's a good like we are the culture here is so anti-China and it's so
Same in
weird. It's like so
Canada.
we're in this military yeah, we're in this military alliance with America and the United States and the UK, which is really an anti-China alliance. But at the same time, we insist on having China as our biggest trading partner and our regional neighbor. It's such a weird dynamic, and all I can really think of is the fact that we are so enshrouded in this colonial identity and honestly white supremacy that we can't even fathom the idea that we could have an alliance or a real friendship with someone who isn't one of these other colonial countries. And that's what video is, just a kind of a dive on that.
No, it's
And it'll
good.
probably turn into a podcast.
Yeah, it's good because we definitely have a similar vibe with China. I think it's maybe a little more friendly, but there's a lot of like hate towards China, even though, yeah, it's again a really big trading partner. But there's just like communism's bad. Like the propaganda runs deep, like in the hearts of many, I think, especially in Alberta where I am, as we have our oil uh, stuff, and there's a lot of the politics originate from that industry. I think last time we actually talked a lot about resource extraction as it relates to colonial power. Yeah.
So,
So,
so a saying that I'm always throwing out is, colonialism, capitalism are hand in hand, they're BFFs, and the core point is extraction and exploitation for, profits. And that's not something that's new. That's been around for 500 years. And to me, that defines this whole era of humanity. Like, the world was stable-ish in like the 16th century, and then colonialism and capitalism both come along at the same time and just fucks everything up. Like, all of the instability in the world today is like the aftershocks from that original earthquake, the colonialism earthquake that just wrecks the whole world basically. And we still live with we're living in the consequences of that now. And all the colonial power structures, especially in Canada and Australia and New Zealand and South Africa, whoever you want to pick, that's the mentality the Europeans came over with, is this is just a land to plunder and extract all the wealth from. There's no connection to the land. There's no care for the land. And to me, that's the core problem with why, one thing, we don't have any culture that grows. We make stupid alliances with other white supremacist colonial powers that don't make any geopolitical sense. Like, all of our politics is rooted in this idea that the colonial people were the best and they knew what was what. And that's just not true. It's especially not true now. Like, the British Empire has been dead for 70 years, but we still have to be tethered to it because we have this weird cultural affinity to believe that they're still somehow the best.
yeah, and
Yeah.
I don't know how it works in Australia with the Commonwealth, but I know our government is very closely tied to like the structure of the British Empire, like the way, like the House of Commons, like the way the voting goes, um, that sort of thing. And we have obviously our Indigenous people here, and that's the biggest movement we see, the Indigenous people trying to reclaim their land or reclaim their independence, and then work with money and stuff, because it's like they're not nearly as developed. There's a huge water crisis here, even though we have so much fresh water. So we have a lot of natural resources, forestry and logging, and well, logging, forestry, and like just fresh water alone, like that's actually a huge, like, especially in the future, especially with global warming. But there's a huge amount of people that talk about like reverse racism, like, well, you can be racist towards white people, like, we've had a hard life, like, what about us? And like a huge resistance to just there's still a lot of resistance. There's globally, I think, a bigger push. My cat's joined our conversation, by the way.
I know, it's very, I
He
really love this
blesses
cat.
our conversation, our conversation today. Um, yeah, so that's kind of why I'm actually just doing this podcast in general, especially in Medicine Hat, Alberta, where I am. But in Alberta specifically, it's the biggest conservative population, as well as kind of like in the Bible Belt of Canada. And that seems to result in a lot of like colonial mindset as well. I'm sure Australia has some similarities. You guys got a lot of white people there, so.
We have a similar structure. I'm in the state of Queensland, it has the reputation of being like the redneck part of Australia,
Nice.
which I don't think is all that fair, because honestly, all of Australia is pretty racist if you just dig below the surface. Queenslanders just don't mind openly doing it. But, but I like that you touched on the idea of like reverse racism, and this is something I always like to challenge over here. For the one thing, I think the people that say that have no actual understanding what racism is, because racism is a power structure. It's the fact that, the colonial power structure always makes sure that it's a level playing field for white people, but anyone else is always going to be disadvantaged in all sorts of um, legal and violent ways often. And you can't do that to white people because we are the power structure. Like, you can have a hard life living with all that privilege. It's just that, the privilege means that your race is not a reason why you're disadvantaged. You could still grow up in a poor household and all that. There's all sorts of bad things that can happen to you, but racism is absolutely not one of them ever, because only white people control the power structures, and that's as simple as that.
That is very simply put, yes. Was I gonna say there's something about I wanted to talk about government a little bit as opposed like with the racism because I wanted to just get a little deeper into it. So yes, is there ever a point where like white people become like a decimated population in their own countries, like Canada, Australia, like because there's a big thing about immigrants right now. Canada actually had tons of immigrants and we ended up in like this housing crisis now. And so everyone's blaming the immigrants. People are sometimes blaming the government, which is whatever, but it's unfortunately resulting in like a lot of discrimination and like a lot of it's like furthering the divide, furthering the politics. We actually have a separatist movement here in Alberta, to just leave Canada and maybe join the States. So that's a little scary, which is why we're again here today.
It's interesting. We have the exact same rhetoric here that we're being flooded with immigrants. And, it's that great replacement thing, right? Like all the white people being replaced by all these, non-white immigrants. But if you actually look at any of the data, and I used to work for Bureau Statistics in Australia, so data was a whole thing of mine. The immigration rates are pretty steady and have been for decades. There is actually, numbers-wise, not really any difference. The only thing that's really changed is a rhetoric around it. And the fact that the media is absolutely consumed with this idea that immigrants are coming in to attack us. Immigrants are coming in. Look, we let in 100,000 immigrants this year. And I'm like, well, so what? We do that every year. We have always done that for decades. And it was never a problem until now. And, my opinion, and I think I can back this up. In my opinion, I think all that's really happening here is everything is genuinely getting worse in society. Like the cost of living is going up. Housing is definitely a crisis. There are crises everywhere. Things are burning down. Things are flooding. It's really bad.
Yeah.
And the government, the neoliberal government, which is completely run by fossil fuel lobbyists and billionaires, and we don't actually have any democratic choice in anything that's run. It's just the rich people running everything into the ground. They need a distraction. So they're going to blame these immigrants, which, again, are the same immigrants they've always been. Nothing is fundamentally different, but they're bearing the brunt of it. And the people are getting the brunt is, it's immigrants, it's asylum seekers, it's trans people, and it isn't lost on me that these are all the most politically empowered groups in society. Like, they have no political recourse. They have no political power. They can't talk back if you blame all the problems in societies on them. And that's what this is about. Like, it is genuinely a class war, but they want us fighting a culture war. They want us divided and fighting each other, so we're not challenging the people with actual power that are fucking up all our lives. Yeah.
Yeah. That's why, when I post a lot, like Instagram and stuff, I always bring it back to the billionaires because I'm like, I don't want to participate in I want to stick up for the people that are being like bullied in the culture war. To be like, it's not them, it's them. And like, because it's like one thing you just can't deny. Everyone agrees. Sorry.
Like, at the same time, they want to say all these immigrants are coming in and stealing all the jobs and then stealing all the houses. But at the same time, they're all coming here and taking over the welfare state, and they're all broke and they're just breaking the system. And go, well, which fucking is it then? Are they the rich immigrants coming and stealing all the houses, which you already know are unaffordable? Or are they poor people coming in and then leeching off the government? They can't be both at the same time. That doesn't make any sense. But no one wants to think like that. They're just like, no, they're non-white immigrants, blame them and leave it at that. Don't think any deeper.
And there's still that propaganda. There was recently, we have a political guy, his name's Pierre Poilievre. He's on the conservative side of things. He lost in our most recent election. He actually lost his seat in his riding, but then he got back in. But he's doing like the Trump rhetoric, like the same thing. He actually, right before we have a Truth and Reconciliation Day, it's like, I think on the 20th of September, but the day before he came out publicly and was like, Christians are the most persecuted group in all of Canada. Statistically, he said, which is not true. Yeah, it's not true. It's Muslims and Indigenous people.
Oh, no.
So it's like... I don't even have a point. I just was like,
It's like
dude.
it's the same rhetoric. Yeah, and here like there's the white genocide, and they did this. It's a very similar thing in saying like in South Africa, there's like a white genocide happening, like all white people being wiped out, and they go, well, do you have any evidence of that? I mean, whenever there's a genocide against a group of people, as we now unfortunately know from like Palestine, there's shit tons of evidence. There are mass graves, there are the names of all the people who killed, there are sites, there's witnesses, there's reports, there's videos. There's so much evidence when a genocide happens because genocide is huge.
Yeah.
And he asked people, okay, so if this is genocide happening in South Africa, can you name one person that's died in it? Just one, any of them. And no one can. No one can. Can you tell me the site of any of the massacres? Where are the mass graves? Where's anything? There's never any evidence. It's just a feeling. I feel persecuted. I feel like there's a genocide against me.
Yeah.
And it's all horseshit. Yeah. And it's the same thing with a Christian persecution. There is no Christian persecution.
Well, I think there was like some attacks on some churches. I have not, like, I'm not saying there's been no violence. I think there has been some in response, probably to the other violences. Not that it makes it okay. Like, it's just like, yeah, it's not to diminish anyone's death, but it's like when you see numbers, the statistics, the data, it's when the numbers are that high and people are breaking ceasefires and there's war after war in Africa for our entire lifetime that we've been watching since we were children. And it just is like, oh, another thing in Africa. Oh, another thing. And then you start learning about the resource extraction. And then I even listened to a girl, she was on TikTok. She probably still is. She was Ugandan, posting from like just her day to day and like being like pushing back against being labeled as like a third world country and just sharing like how much she actually like, how much their society is so good actually compared to like Western capitalism, which I thought was awesome. But anyways, it's just like you start learning stuff.
A lot of time in again. No, that's true. Yeah. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Go ahead. I'm done.
Sorry, I think we might have a bit of a delay. That's all.
Oh yeah, I think so. I'm actually uploading something, which is probably not helping our situation. Okay, I'm an accident.
Possibly. And it's very true. Like again, we're going on tangents all over the place, but that's part of the fun.
Okay.
Right? And I spent a lot of time in East Africa, especially in Uganda, and I can attest that it is nothing like what Westerners think Africa is, because all we ever see, especially in our mainstream, hell, all news here, is only the most horrible images coming from Africa. Like there is, these kids are starving, or there's a big war going somewhere. And there's never any context to any of that. There's never any idea of the scale of that. And for example, one of the things I love to point out, there's all the horror happening in the Congo right now, which is absolutely happening. There is basically a bunch of rebels, the M23 rebels, which came from Rwanda, and they're funded by America, by the way. And they're basically in southern DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, trying to take over all the mines, and they're creating a lot of chaos in a lot of the mineral-rich areas. And during that chaos, U.S. corporations come in to steal all the resources. But all we'll see is that, the horror of the fighting. But one of the things I don't think a lot of people understand is DRC is a huge country. And if you're in about 80% of it, you don't even know there's anything going on. Like, it's just this corner of it that is happening. And same with, you might have heard about the horrible things happening in Tigray in northern Ethiopia. Same thing. The situation there is absolutely horrific. But if you live in southern Ethiopia, you don't even know what's happening. Like, that's the thing that they never show. Like, most of Africa is really stable and is doing pretty okay. But we never hear that part on the news. We only ever hear horror, horror, horror. Look how savage these people are. Don't let them in. They're immigrants. All that sort of shit.
Yeah, and it is funny because if I think back to before I studied the history or looked into things, it's I kind of just was shit is not good. People are starving. And I always knew the blood diamond thing was probably the first thing that raises that awareness that there's something going on in Africa. So the diamond mines are. So now your diamonds aren't good. So I was already not getting diamonds. Not that I can afford diamonds. That whole industry is messed up anyways. You shouldn't be buying diamonds. from Africa,
So, yeah,
unless they're from African
100%.
owned. But you know, the
Yeah.
Burkina
And also, I
Faso.
think
Oh, sorry, delay. Go ahead. I'm ready for you. I stopped myself.
I don't know what I was about to say anyway, but I think you're about to go to Burkina Faso, so shoot.
Yeah, because I did want to
Mm.
touch on the leader there. I've watched a bunch of his speeches now. What's his name? Frick.
Ibrahim Traore. Yep.
Yes. When I started listening to
Yep.
that guy's speeches, was so I felt like hope actually for like a long like the first time against like capitalism against this whole thing that we're talking about. Because I'm like, if Africa can overcome what they're facing, and you know, people like us can talk about it and share, I'm like, that's a really huge step in like a revolution or like a shift in control.
Definitely. And it's a much bigger deal than I think a lot of people realize because for those who don't know, the very quick version,
Yeah.
Burkina Faso, Mali, and Nigeria kicked the French out of the country. That's essentially what happened. They had a coup against the government. Now, in the West, this was portrayed as a military coup against the democratic government of Burkina Faso. That's how the Western media portrayed it. But what they leave out is the democratically elected government in all three of those countries was a French proxy. They worked for the French government and they made sure that all of the resources in all three countries favored France more than anything else. So they basically export all the mineral wealth, including a shit ton of uranium, which the French use, for below market value. So the people aren't getting any money from this, but the French get a huge profit. So there was a coup from the military in all three countries, and they kicked the French out of the country, and they are installing socialist governments.
Yeah.
In Burkina Faso, especially, this is a return to their history that was interrupted because in the 80s, they had the awesome, awesome leader, and one of my heroes, Thomas Sankara, who was a great socialist revolutionary, massive feminist too, by the way. He was one of the, he's this awesome all round guy.
He got
And
killed though, right?
he did the same thing. Yeah, he did a coup against the government. He set things right, and then the French and the CIA assassinated him, and they installed another Western puppet guy who sent the country back into imperialism. And that's where Ibrahim Traore comes in, as he's now done the same thing Sankara did, kicked them out. But this time, he is obsessed with national security. That's why you always see him walking around like really heavily armed. Everyone in the country is getting armed. Everyone's getting trained. They're building militias everywhere. And again, Western media portrays this, look, they're extremists, terrorists, blah, blah, blah. And like, no, they're getting ready for the US to come and try and assassinate and take it back. And they're not having any shit. And that's where,
yeah,
they're really tough at forming an alliance. The Sahel nations are forming an alliance together to defend each other if France or US comes back. So very exciting.
super exciting. And that was it called BRICS? Where they're trying to like change the economics so it's not like dependent on the US dollar. That's another thing that was like it's linked though, I'm pretty sure, right?
So BRICS see where it's Brazil, Russia, India, what's the next letter? C, China, South Africa. And they basically have an economic agreement to try and create a separate currency backed by their combined economies to challenge the US dollar, which is, of course, tied to oil, the petrodollar.
Yeah.
And by doing that, they can create their own economic bloc on the side so people don't have to get sucked into the US orbit. They can have another choice for a strong economic partner. It's kind of tied together. I think that's just a very clever economic play to just decenter the US as the world economy, which I don't think is going to be too hard to do anyway as the US continues to implode on itself and refuse to invest in anything but basically scams and crypto and nonsense. It's not going well in the US.
It's not.
But yeah.
Which it's sad because, the American people are like being somewhat terrorized, well, especially with the ICE raids and stuff, but it's, I don't want to call it karma because that sounds like you deserve it. No one deserves to suffer. But it's almost like They've
I mean, I get that there's a certain Schadenfreude at seeing America imploding on itself. But yeah, it's not lost to me that the vast majority of Americans had nothing to do with this. They're just the working class like anywhere else. They don't have any power. They didn't benefit from any of the horrible imperialism.
yeah.
And it is very sad that they're in the middle of it. But for the survival of the rest of the world, it's kind of important that the US empire falls one way or another. So I hope the fallout isn't too bad for everyone. But if we're ever going to have any chance of saving the planet from all of this horror and the war and global warming and all that, the US anti-capitalism has to collapse. There's no other way around it, in my opinion, anyway.
I would agree with you. I've been saying it since I was like 17. I picked up that Jared Diamond book. Jared Diamond? Collapse? And I've just been waiting this whole time. You're 40, I'm 37. So it's like, I don't know about you, but I think ever since those Twin Towers fell, I was like, something's going on with the government. I don't trust them. So,
That's when we also getting radicalized, right? Like I was very young when 9/11, so 15.
yeah.
It's just been non-stop shit since. It's just been this endless forever war. It's just been scams. It's been the death of democracy, whatever might have been there. I have no illusion anymore. I don't believe in America. I don't believe in capitalism. All of it has been destroyed for me because of the last 20 years of non-stop horror. So yeah, let it fall, honestly.
I agree. think the only people who really struggle with the idea are the capitalists themselves, the business owner. Even like on a smaller scale, like business people, when they hear this kind of thing, they're like, again, that whole communist thing pops up for them. And we're like, and I even felt this way too. I'm like, well, we know communism didn't work. Like we see it not working with Russia, with China. China hasn't been great historically either. There's been some bad wars, but then you have to think, well, we did get, I don't know if I can, I'm not super knowledgeable on it actually, but I've gone to communism, I've come back from communism, I've agreed, I've been like, well, yeah, like it has to be capitalism. Like I'm a business person, so like it's not that I don't want to do business, it's just like there has to be like, it's like more of a nuanced topic. It's not like, oh, I'm anti-capitalist, that means I want full on communism in the way that China did it per se, even though people are very selfish. They don't want to pay taxes, but I don't know. What do you think?
I know what you mean. But I do think that comes from a fundamental misunderstanding about socialism and communism. Not even misunderstanding. We are bombarded with propaganda about it from birth to just have very negative views towards it, to see it always in a negative light. Shit tons of lies told about it. But I like to just break it down really simply to people. And if you explain like the basic premise without actually mentioning it's socialism or communism, almost everyone's like, yeah, sounds good. Because it's literally just democracy basically everywhere. Democracy in the workplace, and then the workers also control the government, cutting out the corporations altogether. And I'm like, yeah, I could work in a democratic workplace, even if I own the business. Like it basically just means the workers get a say and the workers get a share in the profits rather than just I'm the boss and I get all the profits. You can have some crumbs. That's fundamentally the only real difference. And most people are like, yeah, I can find that. But that's not, of course, what we're told. It's funny that we're both taught from a very young age to hate communism, but also never told anything about what it actually is. Like we don't ever get any education about it. And that always struck me as strange in high school and uni as well.
Yeah.
Because okay, so this is the biggest threat to our way of life. So therefore, shouldn't we know everything about it so we can combat it more effectively? But they want us to hate it, and they also don't want us to know anything about it. And that was always like, I don't trust this. That's what sent me down my path.
Yeah, the main narrative, this is high school. But even into like university too, it's like talking about industrial revolutions and things like that. It was always just like the Russia story, like the Russian, like Lenin, and then Stalin. And it's like, well, that doesn't sound like the Russian version that we got told. Well, yeah, that doesn't sound great because it's like, oh yeah, people were lining up in bread lines. Like, then it's like, well, you gotta look a little deeper though, because it's like, it wasn't the communists, it was again the government, the fucking billionaires.
don't forget all those sanctions as well against Russia. But I like to point out the other half of the history, which again is the part we're never told. If you look at Russia in 1917, so this is like towards the end of the First World War,
Yeah.
everyone is actually starving. Like the First War has drained the whole place completely. Most of the population are illiterate serfs working on dirt farms. Everything is gone to shit. Nothing works. In the revolution that happens then, fast forward 20 years later, Russia is the most educated place on earth. It's the first place to fully implement women's rights. It is the second most industrialized place on earth. It has the lowest homelessness rate because they build just cheap housing everywhere. And they beat the Nazis in World War II. And then they send someone to fucking space. Now, they were an illiterate dirt farm, and in 20 years of communism, became the most literate superpower in the world. It had a shit ton of problems. Do not get me wrong. It did a lot of mistakes and it got a lot of stuff wrong and a lot of people died. But if you want to look at the big picture, it is the single biggest transfer from lifting people out of extreme poverty to a livable life in human history. There's never been anything else like it. And that part they leave out of the story. This was like, yes, but there was a bread line. Well, fuck it. There's bread lines in America now. What of it?
Pretty much, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, no, that's cool perspective. And I think a lot of times, because, well, like the government still, like if we go to Putin now, like, and I've heard this, that people really love Putin because like he's helped with this transformation as well. But then he's like also like murdering people and things like that too. But I don't know.
I am not a fan of Putin at all, just so because he's not a communist. He is a capitalist, and the reason Russia's, I think, a lot shitter now is the fact that he was a traitor. He was KGB in Russia, and he was one of the people that helped overthrow the Soviet Union, and then installed himself as a dictator and an oligarch, and now he's his friends with all the billionaires that took over the country.
Right, so not democratic. That's what we're supposed to be.
No, not at all. Yeah.
So it's not the communism, it's not the socialism. It's again the capitalism.
No, exactly. He's 100% capitalist, and I have a lot of reverence for the Soviet Union. Modern Russia is not the same thing. It is a very, very different place. I think that's important always to point out where we can.
But absolutely. Well, like, just as far as like education goes, and people, if they're listening, they can at least think about that a little deeper and do some of their own like research. There's so many, I love history TikTok. I feel like it's the best, not just TikTok, but just history in general, of like in the chaos, in the madness, everyone's very affected, everyone's very emotionally driven, but like if you just stick to the history, I mean, it's just very you're like, oh yeah, okay. There's not a lot of argument. People argue history too, of course.
That's how I got
leg. I'm just waiting for you now.
I was just gonna say, no, that's kind of how I got started on TikTok. I've always been really, really interested in history and just asking like, why did this happen? Why did this happen? And so on. And to me, it was just like, I want to present the history that isn't from the Western capitalist point of view. And that was really my only intention when I started making the videos, and it just took me down the rabbit hole. I radicalized myself making a lot of these videos, going, holy shit, it is so much worse than I thought. And so, and I a lot of the sources I use are like old Russian sources as well. And when I first started looking at them, I thought, well, this is clearly propaganda and it's biased. And then I said to myself, well, what the fuck do you think the US sources are? Like, it's exactly the same. So you might as well dig through as many different sources as you can and just somehow find something that comes closest to the truth.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up where I am now, I guess.
I feel like a big one for me was like the CIA, just like studying like what the CIA was up to. For me, I got into like the psychedelic history actually, because there's a lot of it's kind of where it started, right? And then you're like, look at what did the CIA do? Like they had one of their operations was in the Philippines, I believe, and I was like, and like the Korean War, the Vietnam War, CIA had major influences there. So then even just looking at that little tiny amount of history kind of pulls, yeah, a whole door wide open into like understanding the US as a country and like how they operate. And no one can argue the fossil fuel thing.
100%.
Everyone knows the oil money is like the lobbyists, like that's been, to me, that's just like a black and white that's been around for so long. But some people still think lobbying's okay. It's not, as far as I'm concerned, but
Sick, but like it just what you were just saying there reminds me of a tweet I saw a while back. I think it's pretty famous, but I can't remember who did it. But it basically says like nothing will make you sound crazier than reciting 5 things the CIA has done and freely admit to. Like everything like MK Ultra and the brainwashing, like all the ways they've infiltrated and tried to destroy communism around the world. They've done so many horrible things in the name of propping up US corporations around the world. Pure evil. But yes, the lobbying. I always saying that I think the biggest threat of all is just corruption, and that's what lobbying is. It's just legalized bribery. You know, how can we possibly have a functional democracy if we have lobbyists in the ears of all our politicians and giving millions of dollars to our politicians? Why would they ever give a fuck about our vote ever again if that is who we're competing against? You cannot have a functional government if there is lobbying involved. And think about how much power they have. Like if you're a billionaire and you want to further your business interests and you want to get rid of, say, environmental laws, work safety laws, you can just walk into exactly. You can just go into parliament. Like I use Australia as an example. We've got 150 odd seats in our parliament. You could bribe every single person in every single political party for only $150 million, which is nothing. And if there were a couple of holdouts, let's say there's a couple of people like, no, my ethics and my morals are too strong, I will not accept your money, then the billionaire can just shrug their shoulders and go, fuck it, I'll just fund your opponent and then they'll win next time. No matter what, I'm going to win. There's nothing your vote can do to that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, lobbying is extremely dangerous.
Yes. And yeah, like you said, that so many people can just be bought off. So many people can just disappear. That kind of thing, or
exactly
the orchestration of how like they do smear campaigns, like the media, like to destroy someone's character. Like it's all, they just have a huge playbook of things that they do, right? So I'm looking forward, like I'm pretty hopeful, I guess, with the new Epstein leaks emails. Like I think there's a lot of stuff in that which is pretty undeniable, like some cold hard evidence. Because everyone's just ignoring Trump. I don't know about Trump here. I don't know why people can still be okay with that guy. There was literally like a 13-year-old girl that like came out against Trump in like 2016 that no one listened to. You know what I mean?
Oh, ever listen to the victims, right? I mean, they've been saying it for years, and it was just like, whatever, there's no evidence. But there is. They're telling us straight up the horrible things that have been happening on that island, and no one wants to listen. And now here we are.
Yes, 100%.
But yes, exactly. It's the I'm very curious to see what happens with that file. I don't think anyone's in any doubt that Trump and friends and everyone have done all the horrible things documented. Yeah. The question is the legal system actually, does it still exist in America? Is there actually going to be anyone that persecutes this? Or are they just going to be like, doesn't matter. Trump's got all the power. He's got, fucking paramilitary forces and ICE controlling the streets. Who's actually going to challenge him? Who's going to go and arrest Trump? Who could get away with it? I don't know.
I've heard
that's the question.
I've heard that with some people call this the Great Awakening, right? So they say, well, because there's a collapse happening, it comes from the ground up. And the signs, the markers that it's really about to crumble are when academics and the military also abandon the system, like abandon the power structures. So that's where I have my ear out for things like that. Like when I heard historians from University of Berkeley were like coming to Canada because they're like, this is not good. Like I'm like, that's a good sign. So now we just need people in the military, which is the most difficult one because they're so brainwashed, I guess. Through generations.
Definitely. Interesting you should say that, because when I'm thinking about what's what's going to actually happen in America. There's a couple of scenarios, but to me, the most likely one is a military coup. There's got to be some general or admiral or someone in America. Like, for example, they've just got that huge task force sitting off Venezuela right now. Well, the admiral in charge of that is basically in charge of one of the biggest militaries on earth. Why not just sail it up to Washington and take over the whole country? I have a feeling someone is going to do something like that. And it won't be a good thing. It won't be like to save the country. There'll just be some general with enough power that goes, I could take this whole country right now, and I'd be applauded as a hero because everyone hates Trump. And we might even be in for all new horrors as a result
It
of
could
that.
be worse.
But
yeah. Oh, I never thought of that.
But I could see that being possible now. Like, things are bad enough now that you got to weigh it up. The general will be like, could I get away with this? And I think now you're at the point where maybe you could. So,
and maybe there's a few of them that are like talking in their offices over cigars and stuff. That's what I'm hoping for. So I know that has to happen because they're testing nuclear weapons again. I think I heard is another thing, and I'm like, oh god, the doomsday clock is just a ticking.
It's all horrible, but you have to assume someone has got a plan somewhere. But then, we've been thinking that for a long time too. Like, surely it can't get any worse than this. And it always does. But it can only get worse for so long before it eventually does bottom out and things start to go up again. One way or another, it will get eventually.
Yeah, I do have a lot of hope because, like, again, I'm just seeing, I guess with TikTok is a big one that just connected a lot of voices, right? And it's just like, I realized, there's like a lot of people. There's like way more people that are more educated. They understand. The entire Gen Z population, I think, gets it really well. Millennials, us, like, I think we kind of amalgamated into it, right? And like a lot of people just sort of like gave up. And that's where, like, our generation, I heard a university professor, he was also in California, he did a theory on like generations and how there's like a cycle, and millennials are supposed to be like the tear it down generation, and the Gen Zs are supposed to be the build it back up, and then there's like the next generation that maintains the status quo, and then it just keeps cycling. So that's kind of how I viewed things for a while, and I'm like, well, we're responsible, like, we're the leaders of tomorrow, so like we gotta say stuff, we gotta talk about this kind of stuff, and at least advocate for better leadership and talk about issues. So, that's just my mission in life, and I think one of your missions too. So
definitely. Yeah, and I feel like our generation, of course, we got to see some of the good stuff before it all went to hell. Like, I was like 15 before it started getting bad. I remember the old world, and it was actually okay. Yeah. But all the kids today don't know that. They've only grown up in endless horrors and existential crisis. Yeah. So what incentive do they have to save this system? Like, and I think that's a very good thing, because there is nothing left to save here, I don't think.
No, just some nice architecture, some good art.
But we need this whole thing. None of it serves society. It's all just serving the capitalist billionaires, and they have betrayed the entire social contract. So, why are we saving?
My dog's joining us. He wants his supper. He's Australian.
That's fine.
Okay, come on.
Is a shepherd. What are they called? Australian shepherd.
Healer.
The dog.
Blue healer.
Oh,
and a kelpie.
A blue healer. Yeah.
Yes.
A kelpie. Very good.
Well, okay. Well, this was good. We're at 45 minutes, so the last thing that we were gonna just mention was our artist in Sudan that we're going to try to get to their $15,000 goal. So I'd like to just mention that.
You know where they're up to now?
Let's check. I did do my, I did 50 Canadian dollars, but it was 35 US. So let's see. They're close to 13 yesterday, so I'll just double check. So yeah, if anyone
Get them
has like
over.
$5, $20, $30,
We all just put in five to $20 each. We'll get them over the line like this week,
yeah,
which would
nothing
be
feels.
awesome. That actually
I think it's possible. We
we
gotta
need.
get it. I'm gonna post every single day asking. Okay, let's check though. I want the actual number. I gotta switch accounts. Um, yeah, lately I've been, sponsoring or like being a donor like for different creators, like just $5, $2 like supports every month, and then I donated to the community radio for my son's birthday like a couple weeks ago. And it just feels so good to just support, like your money is your energy, right? So it's like we can't do much, like we have a privilege, like we have a lifestyle, we have things that we're up to, but like if you can just give back for like in that way just for a second, it does make a huge difference. And not even just this cause, but any cause in your community. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And I mentioned this in the last time we did the recording, but it's always worth repeating. But I'm a really big advocate of just supporting people directly because I'm not a fan of charities and NGOs because they take really big cuts and a lot of them can be corrupted. Not all of them, to be fair, but a lot of them can be.
A lot of them.
But when you just give money directly to someone's like GoFundMe or whatever, you know that's actually going to them and you're helping them directly. And I think that's one of the best things you can do.
It's
So
so
yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I know. I kind of was like anti-charity too, because like in Canada we have like why haven't they figured out how to cure cancer? There is like lots of knowledge about like that disease or like different types of cancer. A lot of it's environmental because of capitalism, that kind of thing. And then we could go on to the medical industry as well. Capitalism. Sorry, go ahead.
So the leg, I keep talking over the indigo. I don't mean to. I
It's okay.
apologize.
The
But
leg's
yeah,
hard.
yeah. When I was in Uganda, I was in a place called Karamoja, which is one of the poorest states in the country. And I remember this is a vivid core memory of mine now, but I remember one of the charities set up there. I won't say their name, but it's a big one. And their facilities were outstanding. Like they had this whole compound, they had everything they needed, had all the trucks, they had all the food, they had everything. And the town outside of it was not doing well. And it struck me even at the time that there is all that money just in that compound and none of it's actually going out to help the people, in the streets. And I never forgot that. Now, to be fair, that was my visual observation that I don't really know what their operations were. So I'll be fair there. Maybe they were doing good, but that image has stayed with me and it struck me a lot. And yeah, so that's one of the reasons I hate charities now.
Yeah, mine was sort of
Yeah.
actually about breast cancer. I like heard something about the salaries there. Also the Terry Fox run, which is a Canadian thing, but again, it's like they've been fundraising every single year for 25 years or whatever, and they're not like I mean, whatever, there's probably little things here and there, but it's just one of those things. And then as well as people who make a lot of money, millionaires, billionaires, there's like people in history that have literally used that money to build infrastructure and help people. And that does happen. I've heard stories here and there, but it's like I really would love to see more people not hoarding their wealth and building their bunkers and things like that. You know what I mean?
Especially don't trust the billionaire charities because they're just money laundering operations. They absolutely are not real charities. It's just a place for them to send the money so they don't have to pay taxes and then it just gets paid back to them after. Anything, it's the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, for example, is a
Oh
total
my God.
scam.
Yeah.
Money. Yeah.
No, Bill Gates, not a good guy. Not a
Or he's
good
a
guy.
monster. Yeah.
Monster.
Yeah.
Okay, so she's at, can we see?
Nice.
82%.
Oh, hell
So
yeah. All right.
let's see. We did actually, I donated yesterday and someone donated today. So there's been 409 donations. So I bet you she got at least 500 donations. I'm trying to set goals here.
Yep. I
500
like that.
donations probably might get her there.
Yeah, let's pop her. I'll go do some more on this one too. Just we all do our parts.
Yes, awesome. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much for coming back on, and I have faith in this audio. And yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground. So yeah, anything else you'd like to share before we go? One final.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an absolute pleasure, and I've enjoyed both of our recordings. So anytime you want to invite me back, I am more than happy to come.
Oh, I'll be in touch. Well, I have that one girl I mentioned. I have a girl that my Israeli friend actually. She said that she would love to come and chat, and I thought that
It'll
could
be
be
an
a really
interesting
interesting
conversation.
conversation. I had a really good conversation with her, uh, and I thought maybe a three-way. We'll make sure our leg's not bad, but I think maybe we could get some really cool discussions because she has a different perspective in some ways, and I think that would be a really cool thing to cover. So we can chat about that separately and see if we can make that happen. But in the meantime, I'll catch you on the interwebs, and we'll end on your slogan, how you end every video. You can say it.
It's
Ready?
something to think about.
Something to think about, everyone. And yeah, do let us know. You can comment and send things on the internet. Again, donate if you'd like to support us today, and that would be amazing. Thanks, everyone. Bye bye.